Hello, BookTube. I come back to you again with four new releases. The first of which uh, doesn't seem to be quite new. Penguin sent me Tales from the Decameron, new-ish volume. Pub date says 2015. Translations by Peter Hainsworth of some of the more famous stories from the Decameron, uh, with a great Rockwell Kent illustration on the cover. Back in the 1940s, he did an illustrated Decameron that I have over on the shelf where it's just full of his illustrations. So just as is one on the cover, uh, a great idea, a great introductory volume for people who don't want to tackle the whole wedge of Boccaccio. But I'm not quite sure why this came to me, and yet I don't think I've read Peter Hainsworth, his version of Boccaccio in English, so I will try it, certainly. Next one, we don't stray far from Boccaccio is the beginning of the Italian Renaissance, and when we get to the heart of it with The Painter of Souls by Philip Kazan. This is, let me read you the synopsis here. Beauty can be a gift or a wicked temptation. So it is for Filippo Lippi, growing up in Renaissance Florence. He has a talent. Not only can he see the beauty in everything, he can capture it, paint it. But while beauty can seduce you and art can transport you, it cannot always feed you or protect you. To survive, Pippo Lippi, orphan, street urchin, budding rogue, must first become Fra Filippo Lippi, Carmelite friar, man of God. His life will take him down two paths at once. He will become a gambler, a forger, a seducer of nuns, and at the same time he will be the greatest painter of his time, the teacher of Botticelli, and a confidant of the Medicis. I read this in Galley. It owes a lot to Wolf Hall. It's a historical novel told in a propulsive present tense. Uh, Quite good for all that. Don't know that I'm on board with him being the greatest painter of his time, but be that as it may. Our next one is a historical novel. It's Everyone Brave is Forgiven by Chris Cleave. It's not his first book, nor even his second. I didn't like Little Bee, which was, I think, his debut novel. He wrote a book called Incendiary that I also didn't like. Thought it was just straining at the seams. This one I loved. I actually loved this book. Right from the beginning, it's not particularly original. It's a story of a love triangle that takes place during World War II. But there's a verve to the writing this time around that I don't remember being there in the earlier books. Thought I would read you just a bit of it. This is Mary North, who has signed up for the war in Britain as soon as it's declared. She's certain that glory lies in her future. And she thinks that because what was war, after all, but morale in helmets and spurs? And what was morale if not 100 million little conversations, the sum of which might leave men brave enough to advance? The true heart of war was small talk, in which Mary was wonderfully expert. The morning matched her mood, without cloud or equivalence in memory. In London, under lucent skies, 10,000 young women were hurrying to their new positions, on orders from Whitehall. From chambers unknowable in the old marble heart of the beast, Mary gladly joined the great flow of the willing. Uh, there's hardly a detail in this book that isn't predictable, programmatic, and yet I loved it. Not It's the kind of inexplicable thing that happens with fiction. I wholeheartedly recommend it. I think you will all like it, and I think it's destined to be a movie. And the last one, a genuine treat, Why Write by Mark Edmondson, the author of a book called Why Read, that every single one of you should go right out and read. Go to the library, get it for a penny at Amazon, buy it new to help the author, one way or another. His book, Why Read, is one of the most humane and compassionate examinations of reading that I have ever read. And this one is about writing. And it's every bit as good. This guy is such a wonderful, gentle teacher. And I thought I would read you just a bit of. He is firmly of the impression that writing is an elevated state of mind, different from the normal. He says, the habitual self cannot write to save its life. Habitual self is good for a grocery list, a laundry list, a note to the mechanic, or a note to thank someone for the spotted birthday tie or the fruit-scented candle. But habitual self cannot write. It is worldly, pragmatic, geared towards the fulfillment of desires, and fundamentally boring, at least to others. At base, habitual self is the Darwinian side of us that wants to survive and thrive and procreate. When habitual self wants to read, it reads Grisham. When it wants to write, it sounds like a machine. It sounds the way your computer would sound if it had a voice of its own, which might be true, but is very much written from the point of view of someone who is not a hack. Some of us are battered Old Bailey hacks and don't have any trouble writing in the everyday tone of mind. And it's not boring either, if you're good at it. But this comes out in August, I think. Yes, the end of August, when we'll have been through the summer. And I will mention it again when the time comes, but it is a keeper. It is a gem. Those of you who write, those of you who read, it's worth putting a note, making a note, and getting it when it comes out. And that's it for new books to keep the chain going here. Let me know if any of these sound interesting, and I'll be back tomorrow with more, I'm sure. Thank you, BookTube.